Hello.
Hello and welcome to another movie review from MBE. We'd just like to thank you once again for joining us here on our YouTube channel and of course our Twitch stream. I'm one of your co-hosts, Stephen John McLaughlin, our other co-host, John Christopher Walsh, and our other co-host, it's Ruth Aaron. We're all here on a Friday night, Saturday morning, for Ruth, bright and early. I take it, but
Saturday.
we're not quite at Saturday yet, still a few hours
Sadly
to go.
not,
But tonight we are going to be reviewing, bear with me, Kadhalukku Mariyadhai. I think that's
pretty decent, Stephen. That's a decent attempt. Kadhalukku
also known
Mariyadhai.
as Respect for Love here in the Western world. This film got an IMDb rating of 8.3 out of 10. It's just under 3 hours long, and it was directed by Fazil, starring the great Talapi Vijay and the great Shalini, some might say. I'm going to pass it over to you anyway, John.
Yes.
Don't know too much about her, that's why I'm saying that. But
well, I know she's married to Tala Rajiv.
Yeah.
A great cinematic rival of Tala
we'll pass it
Vijay.
over to you now, John, and you can take us through this cinematic review.
I tell you, before I go on to the actual rating, I was looking at the age gap of Tala Rajiv and Shalina. It's pretty big. 9 years. Yeah. I think he's 50 odds, she's about 40 odds just now. I thought that's quite shocking. I think she was 18 in this
young
movie.
In this, yeah.
And Talapathi was about 25. He was a baby-faced mid-20s. What a guy. Bring this up, that's not the right thing. Shit. We got there in the end. This is how we rate our movies.
Babyface.
This is our rating system. F is terrible. I will never, ever envisage a movie that Talapathi Vijay makes ever going into the F range. It shouldn't be happening. Because just on a sheer performance level from him, he should do enough to bring the movie out of an F. If it's a slightly substandard movie, his mere presence will make it better. So never, ever be thinking that you'll get an F from this guy in any of his movies, unless it's a really bad one. D minus 3 plus is average. This is an average movie. It should be pretty par for the course to understand. C minus 3 plus is good movie. B minus 3 plus is excellent. It's an excellent movie. And finally, A is reserved for sheer perfection. Only the very best movies ever made will find their way into that A category. That is how we grade our movies. Keep that in mind for when you get to the end, if indeed you do get to the end, and you will understand where we are grading this movie when the time comes for the ratings. But look, we're going to move on to the actual review itself. I'm not even going to speak about what was my mindset getting into this movie. I didn't know much about the movie, I'm not going to lie. I did say to Ruth last week, I'd like to dabble with a Talapathi romantic movie because it's before the action, and I just want to see a different side to this guy. A side to him pre-action superstar, a more tender, young, romantic side. So that's why I was getting into this movie. I didn't know much about it getting in. I'm not going to even kid on that I did. So we'll not do that. We'll go right into the actual story. I tell you, Ruth, we'll go back. I'll reverse. Beep, beep, beep. That's us reversed. I'll go to you, Ruth, and I'll ask you, what was your thoughts getting into this? Because perhaps from your perspective, you may have a different perspective to us. I only knew this name, this movie. That was the one you told me when it was. I thought, right, that's the name. We'll review it. I'll watch it. What was your thoughts getting into this movie, Ruth? When did you first see it? And what was your experience when you did see it?
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it when it came out. I actually saw it. Yeah, exactly when it came out. I think I may have gone to the theater to see it as well. So yeah. So the thing is that with this movie, the story is pretty simple. It's actually a remake of a Malayalam movie. This movie was actually made in Malayalam first. Fazil was still the same.
Is that how you say that? Malayalam? I need to remember that. I say Malayalam.
Malayalam movie.
Malayalam.
Yeah. So Fazil was the director for that one as well. So basically, Shalini acted in that movie, and then after that, they remade it in Tamil, but they changed the actor to Vijay.
Yeah.
And they changed all the actors to Indian actors and all that. But yeah. So, but then some of the actors, I think they kept who were also Malayalam stars.
Oh, that's cool.
And all that. So, yeah. So, the thing about this movie is that on one hand, it's very popular. It was a hit, all these things. But I can understand what it is that the issues that you find with the movie are the same issues I also found with the movie, in the sense that kind of over melodramatic, almost kind of a corny moments at sometimes, that is just seems so so silly and that kind of thing.
But there is some poignant moments. There's some poignant
Exactly.
tender
There are some
moments as well.
moments of point. Yeah, exactly. Why this movie was such a hit is more because of the message it sends
Mm-hmm.
and the stars who were in it and all of that and the time it came out and everything, more than the content per se.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, it's the treatment of the content that made it so popular. In the
Yeah.
sense that I think prior to this, a lot of Indian movies that were romance based were very much parents will oppose, and you would end up dying, or you'd end up having to fight and run away, get married, and that's the situation. So it'll always be like there'll be some antagonist, and then you will just win over the day, that kind of thing. But it never used but in this movie, I think what they wanted to do is that they wanted to send
Yeah.
a message of kind of in the sense that a message to the parents that children will fall in love, and just because they fall in love doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether or not, like, you cannot just dismiss automatically that when somebody falls in love that they have made the wrong choice,
Yeah. Yeah.
or that they hate their family, or they disrespect their family, or something like that. Sometimes the choices your children make can be actually good choices that you yourself would have made if you had stopped to think.
Mm-hmm.
So which is why the parents reaction when the two mothers
You see,
meet the
yeah,
boy,
for the first
and
time, I
and they
get it.
see the
Yeah.
girl, they're like, these are nice.
Yeah.
Like,
A
if
good
they were
fit.
going to pick them out for themselves, they would have picked the same types of people.
Yeah.
So the children didn't make a wrong choice. So that's like, it was meant to be a message for parents. It was also supposed to be a message that sometimes families should have, they should be this kind of families where there is a kind of a camaraderie and friendship within the
Yeah.
families and their children and all that. But at the same time, you cannot be so obsessed with the child that you won't even let the child make their own choices.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the other message that they wanted.
Yeah.
And also a message to the youngsters that sometimes don't see the parents as your enemies. If you love your family, try to do things that they want also, or
Yeah.
try to reason with them, or show them that you love them. And maybe if that were done and there was more communication, they would also pick what you want to pick in your life as
Yeah.
well. So it was like all these little messages
Yeah.
that they wanted to, I think, convey. So it came out at a time where it was a different approach to a love relationship. Also, although the lines can be a bit corny, and it was very, some parts of the comedy and the some didn't quite always gel
I
in
like
well
the comedy in
together,
this movie, though. We'll get
and
into
and,
that.
and some
With some good
parts
moments.
maybe overly dramatic in some parts and all that. But even then, that was one of the reasons it was such a hit. Also, the other reason why it was such a hit was because the actress Shalini, prior to this, for many years, she acted as a child artist, and she was
Oh,
very
alright.
popular.
Yeah.
She acted for at least about 52 to 53 movies as a child artist.
Wow.
And she was like one of the top child artists that you could find. She
So
could
she's got
act.
that.
She was very boisterous, and she was very talkative, and very precocious, and it was that kind of a child artist she was. So after the last movie that she acted as a child, she took a break for 7 years
Wow.
and then came back. This was her first movie.
She's done
She
3
did the
in 1 year,
Malayalam
see?
one,
That's
and then
incredible.
she did the remake. Yeah,
Yeah.
so this was her first debut, so to say, in Tamil, as well as it was her first Malayalam movie back, as well as an actress as the main role. And when she grew up, she was very different from. They wanted to show a different, because people were very eager to see, oh, this was that talkative,
Yeah.
precocious child. As how did she grow up? Is she, very? But she grew up to be a very quiet, gentle kind of girl. Very, maybe because, and she wanted to get away from that image
Yeah,
that
we've
she
seen
had
that.
as a child, that as an adult is
Yeah.
more reserved. So that's why when she did this movie, everybody was so eager to see, oh, baby Shalini. That was the name they used to call her, baby
Baby
Shalini.
Shalini.
Is acting in a movie,
It's a
her
baby
first
Yoda.
movie. So everybody was very eager to act, which is probably why they paired her also with Vijay, who was a softer nature.
Yeah.
So it kind of went well with the movie. So yeah, so the reason this movie was a hit has got a lot of other things playing for it rather than just the movie per se, which is why the ratings are so high and
Yeah.
everybody talks so highly about the movie, because it was the impact it created in terms of storytelling and the messages that were being sent, and who was actually in the movie.
Sometimes you get
So
that
that
lightning
was
in a
the
bottle.
reason. Yeah,
Yeah, you do. You get lightning in a bottle.
exactly.
And everything
Yeah.
just aligns, and it's a sort of zeitgeist moment. And also, it's been a zeitgeist moment for the sort of Tamil
Yeah.
region, southern India in general. You've got Shalini, all the
But
parts
if
are
you,
moving.
if you really want to be very strict about it, it is not one of Vijay's really, honestly, one of his really best romantic movies. There are a few more that he has done that's a lot more better,
Yeah,
and we can explore those later. But
I
what
know
I'm
for a
trying to
fact
say is
we've had
that
people. I remember
because
someone.
this
Oh, sorry, Ruth, on you go.
yeah, so but because of all these other factors that work together with the movie, and the story was, I mean, it wasn't a bad story. Of course it was a good story. I know a Vijay movie just generally doesn't get, I mean, even his worst doesn't get really bad, usually, except for one or two exceptions. Still, I still seem to think that Puli and
Pulley, I
a
just say
few
them.
more others fall into that category where I really, even he can't save the movie according to me. But yeah, but but this was, it is still one of my favorites. Not so much because it's merit
Just,
as a filmmaking, but because of all the things it
yeah,
represented and what it made me feel at the time
yeah.
when I saw the movie. Of course, now when I watch it, sometimes certain parts I cringe myself, but I go back to the feeling I had when I first watched the movie, and at that time I was like, wow, this movie is really good,
Yeah.
because of the fact of what kind of movies we had seen prior to that, and then what we were seeing now.
No, this is, you've got to go into it with that mindset. Obviously, us as Westerners, we've come into this. It's obviously 24 years later. We're coming into it from a slightly different mindset. With you, Ruth, you've obviously grown up watching a lot of telepathy stuff, a lot of South Indian and Indian movies in general. So you would have been aware of how different this movie was and the sort of ramifications, the seismic waves, if you'd like, it came from it. One of the things I took from the story, we'll get right into the story just now, is obviously the honour aspect. The honour of families.
Yes.
And this is something even I'm aware of, because I've seen and read some horrendous stories of fathers maybe taking exception to a daughter getting out with or seeing a certain individual. And there was one in particular that stuck in my mind. I don't want to lower the tone, but I think it was in North India. A guy actually killed his daughter, decapitated her, because of honour. He thought she'd removed the honour from their family. She'd dragged her name through the dirt, and he killed his own daughter. So I know for a fact that's something that's a big issue in Indian communities and in general. I mind the Harry Potter actress, obviously she had an issue as well. Parents were trying to kill her, brother was trying to kill her. So I know it's a big issue. So I respect, and I've said it time and again, I respect guys like Telepathy and certain directors, also in this case Facile, for taking on these issues, these societal matters, these ills if you like, and shine a light on it and try to educate people through the art of cinema. So I can respect that a hell of a lot. And that was, for me, that was the key theme. Obviously the honour, it says there, respect for love. You got to respect love. If people love each other, it doesn't matter whether you're ruining the honour or the integrity of a family or their name or the household. If they love each other, they love each other. There's nothing you can do about it, and you've just got to respect it. So for me, that was the key theme in this story. Actually, we'll get into it just now. The first half of this movie, the first half of the story, I do think they could have did a slightly better job. Obviously, as I said, we're coming from a different perspective. Ruth, you will maybe correct me here from your perspective and see how you watched this movie the first time you seen it, and perhaps how you've seen it since. But the first hour, I think they could have condensed it a bit. I think they could have took a half hour off the first hour of the movie, first half of the movie. Take a half hour off, speed up the relationship, get us to a point where Minnie and Jiva are together, and they're maybe eloping, as they like to say, and then get to that second part of the movie. Because for me, the story, the second half of this story is where it really comes alive. I was watching it, I think it's about 2 hours, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in. Maybe not that late, to be fair, an hour and 40 minutes, but an hour you go. And it really started to perk up. They were looking at the honour aspect. The brothers, they were splitting their families in two, and they were really torn internally. What do we do here? We love each other, but we need to think about our families as well. We don't want to destroy our relationships with our fathers, our brothers, our mothers. So I thought that was if they could have got to that a little bit quicker, it'd have been a better experience for me. But they didn't, and that's absolutely fine. Facile made his choice, and obviously it's a remake, so you're kind of tied as well. But for me, I liked in the second half of the story, I liked the dynamic of these two young kids, Jiva and Minnie. I liked the two shit-kicking friends of his. I really enjoyed Kesavan and Raghavan. I know for a fact you liked him as well, Stephen. Perhaps for the comedic value.
Yeah.
And Charlie, I thought in particular, was it Charlie Rezavan? They took also Minnie and Jiva to his father. He was on the sea. I think it was on a coast. Is that right? Am I right
I
in saying
think
that?
Raghavan was the one that went and lived with the guy with the gun.
Rezavan. Yeah.
The little tiny guy with the gun.
Little tiny guy. Oh, was that the little tiny guy with the gun? I was thinking about his actual father though on the coast.
Did you recognize the one of the friends? The guy was it? I think
was it Charlie?
Raghavan.
Oh,
No,
Raghavan.
Raghavan. Did you recognize him? He was the guy from Gilly,
Gilly.
you know, where the guy with the Nari guy with the little flats. It was him.
Yeah. I knew I was looking at him and I'm like, I recognise this guy. But then I went on to IMDb. He's not got a photograph. I'm like, is that right? Is that right? But yeah, I remember looking at him. His face did ring a bell. It did ring a bell.
Yeah.
But then I liked the two of them. I thought the two of them were pretty cool. They were a nice little bit of levity for the story.
Yeah.
When it was getting dark, it was getting a little bit dangerous for Jiva. He was getting punched and kicked off of trees and stuff. They'd come in and they'd give us a little bit of levity, whatever. And also the moment for me was in the bed, when he's hiding under the bed. They're kidding on, they're coming in to clean the room. That was a nice bit of levity for me, and that for me probably summed up. I'm pretty sure that was Raghavan, because he was playing dead at one point.
Was there anyone in this film that didn't hit Jiva? I think everyone hit him. Everybody hit this guy.
They get slapped, they get kicked, they get punched.
I'm not comfortable or used to seeing Telepathy VJ getting hit that way and not doing anything about it. It was an absolute...
But then he wasn't the big star he is now, you see. He wasn't, this was the beginning.
He's definitely not an action star in this film.
Exactly, yeah. No. So he had a very different, coming up. His movies were like, they liked him and all that, but there was always that talk that not every movie was a hit, because there's always talk of, he gets to do movies because his father's in the movie industry or the father's an actor. So all this kind of like talks, and people were, I think, super critical. And when he came in an era, I think, where they didn't really know much about acting. I mean, at most their only exposure is that they may have been around some sets where the parents were, making a movie or something like that. But other than that, they had lived like very sheltered lives, didn't really know anything about acting, and then mainly got to act in a movie because some director somewhere wanted like the look of the person, and because it's an actor's son, so they gave them a shot, to act and that kind of thing. But then, so literally people like Vijay and Surya had to learn the hard way. They had to learn how to act and how to, do their parts and their roles through the movies itself. The movies itself was like a training ground for them. So they really went through quite a lot of criticism in the start. So so at this stage, he's not the big star, confident star that you see. This is a very gentle person, very much like his own real character.
I think
that's his character.
Yeah, I think for John and ourselves, Ruth, I think we now understand where you're coming from when you say Gilly was the sort of turning point, because absolutely. We're seeing Gilly slap bang in the centre there, and we see all these action films that we've already watched and reviewed, and at the other side of that, we're seeing this film, Respect for Love, and we're starting to see, that split, that transition. That we know that Gilly was the one that sort of changed all that, but we're starting to see a full side of Telepathy VJ that we've not seen before. So,
but what I liked about it, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, in more depth later, what I liked about it, you could see the transition in the performance of Telepathy. There was little bursts of action from him, a little insight of what was to come. He'd throw a couple of kicks or a punch or two.
Yeah, you could see
it was restrained. It was more restrained. That's not what this movie is about.
I think he acted his ass off in this film compared to what I've seen before, and that's not saying that his action films aren't get any good acting scenes in them. They have, but for a duration of a whole film, this is probably the most I've seen him act, and range of emotions, if you like,
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, he's crying at one point. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. I'm sure that's a standout for me. There's one standout moment in particular, and it's involving telepathy. Of course, it's going to be involving telepathy. he's a man in this movie, let's be honest. He's a man in all of his movies.
Yeah.
Until I see him with another VJ Sefi Pafi or something, someone who can realistically take the limelight off of him in a movie, it's always going to be his movie. I mean, off the top of my head, there's not many movies he's been acting in alongside someone and they stole the show. I can't think of any. Maybe VJ Sefi Pafi, as I says, is what's it, Bhavani and Master. That's the only one I can think of. 9 times out of 10 it's his performance. But look, for the Steve, what's your thoughts on the story? I've been going on. I've said my bit in the story. I'll get back to it as well.
I don't think I could word it any better than Ruth is in terms of the message. The message is very loud and clear, and you can't take that away from the film. And it's the positives from the film. The message is very clear, but there is issues in there, John, and we will talk about the issues as well in terms of storytelling. At times was probably a bit disjointed and maybe elongated at times, certainly in that first half of the movie. That I do agree. I think maybe editing that down a little bit more to half an hour off. Yeah. I don't think it would have changed the story too much if they did that. I just think there's a bit to and froing at times going on.
Yeah, they expedited it a tiny little bit.
I think so. And
just a tiny bit.
If that's one of the nitpicks, then
but look,
there's not a lot we can do about that.
But we spoke about that, and obviously in India it is a real event. Getting out to the theatres, you go out with your family, you really enjoy it. You want to sit and you want to marinate in the movie, maybe slightly more so than here. I mean, it's still an event going to a movie. I love going to the theatres. I do. My
issues aren't obviously with the message. I think it's a bold decision for the director to put this film out, and obviously for VJ as well and Shalini to appear in this film and be at the forefront of this film as well. This is where we are going to struggle in terms of it's 1997 and it's in India.
Yeah.
Now in 1997 here in the Western world, I don't know where our traditions have went, to be honest with you, Ruth. There used to be a time when the guy would ask the father his permission if he could marry his daughter. Long gone in this country, maybe about 50, 60 years ago, sadly. Maybe not sadly, it depends where you're coming from, but this country has just not got any traditions anymore. The values are diminishing as well in this country. I think it's just we're turning into a mini US, that's basically it. But when you're coming into a film like this, it is very important to change your mindset, I think. Back to a time, and I'm very naive and possibly ignorant as well in terms of traditions and values in India. I don't know if this still goes on to this day or this is a 1997 thing. John's kind of educated me on it a little bit before. I don't
know if it's quite as widespread as it was back then, but it's certainly there is instances of people taking umbrage, if you like.
When you're watching this film, though, it does take a bit of adjustment. It really does, in terms of tone and. Some of the execution for me is where my issue comes from in the actors. The three brothers, to me, it was exaggerated, obviously, from my point of view.
I've got a word for them.
I just thought, calm down, guys, calm down. It's just a effing love letter. And I've got an issue is with the mini character as well. I'm not going to attack the actors here because I think they actually did a really good job in portraying these very restrained characters. They were restrained, really suffocated to the point where they could not move at times. And I felt that in the mini character very early on, although I didn't understand it till later on in the film, her situation. When the mini character was on screen for the first 30-40 minutes, she annoyed me. I thought she was very bland. I thought she was come on, act, do something. This guy's giving you his heart, you're not responding, you're just drawing him looks.
My biggest issue with that character, Steve.
Exactly.
She let him get beat up twice.
It was also in a way in which they wanted to portray her because it was her first stint back. From that. Because if you had watched any of her movies as a child actor, she was like cheeky, precocious.
Who that puts you in mind of?
Big, the way big, like a bit too big for her boots, that kind of, big talk, those kind of kids that you come across sometimes that, very overly precocious and, very talkative and that kind of stuff, like maybe a bit beyond their years. jumping into conversations that maybe it's not meant for kids, in an era where people will say, kids should be seen and not heard kind of thing.
Yeah.
She was this very,
But we've still got people sharing that
bouncy
viewpoint.
kind of, yeah, exactly.
I was arguing with
And
one.
she even won awards, so much so that there were some films she even, just her character as a child kind of overshadowed and carried the whole film, that it was known as like it's a Baby Shalini film.
All right, yeah.
So that was the image that she had. So coming back after the 7 years, she didn't want, because that was
Be the
not her
same.
nature.
Yeah.
So she didn't want that same effect. So I think the presentation of her was, it needed to be so dramatically quiet. Her demeanor,
So it's a complete yin
to
to the
show a
yang.
stark
Yeah.
contrast, exactly.
Yeah.
So show a stark contrast that people would start assessing her in this new stage of her career,
Yeah.
not with those same old lenses,
Yeah.
but
Perhaps
you know,
Macaulay
with
Culkin
a
should have got
new,
her agent.
exactly.
You see, this is why it's always good to have someone like yourself on, Ruth, who's got a knowledge of the career prior to maybe this movie.
Yeah.
Because we come in, we just see her, that's the first time we've seen her,
Yeah.
we're like, she's a little bit understated here, what's
Yeah,
going on? But then once you get the insight into her previous career
Yeah.
as a child, you see she's deliberately trying to be different.
John, I
And
think
that's
as well,
Exactly, and
we've
even-
got,
yeah.
we have this issue of comparisons as well, and probably subconsciously we are comparing her to the likes of Trisha or Samantha or that kind of ilk, and it's probably not a fair thing to do. But as I said, it's not really comparing the actors, it's the characters they're portraying. I didn't really understand what our issues were early on in that film until obviously you got introduced to her brothers and how protective they were. You got introduced to her
Yeah.
mother. She was 10 times worse than the brothers at
God,
one
the
point.
mother at the end,
And then
I
she
swear
did
to
a
God, I was
360
ready
at the
for.
very end, but we'll talk about the end, John.
I was wanting to kill her.
Yeah, she was very, very. Well, she's hurt. I mean,
Yeah.
she's obviously hurt, and
She redeemed herself.
she did.
No, but
I think most of them redeemed themselves.
The
you know,
mini
but-
character, though, for me,
Yeah.
the biggest issue I had with the character in the first half was obviously when she finally sort of sits down the table with her friend and she meets obviously Jiva and his two friends and they're talking. She
Yeah.
explains she's been followed from a
Yeah.
movie theatre, they're bunking off school.
Yeah.
These guys are trying to follow them, potentially kidnap them. They try to escort her home.
Yeah.
They're trying to do a good deed for
Yeah.
that character.
Mhm.
Also, the brother gets wind of it. Jiva does a stupid thing. He says, I'm a fiancé. He's like, no, you're not, bitch. I'm a brother. Who the fuck are you? But my biggest issue was she never stepped up and says,
No,
look,
there was
Jiva and these
times
two
she did
guys,
it, yeah.
they were actually trying to do a good deed. They were trying
Yeah.
to protect us. She let him get the shit kicked out of him. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
that's
I don't know
tragic
if
for
it was
that
a
guy.
fear.
Guy
I don't
loves
know
you.
if it was a fear
Yeah,
thing with
because
her.
It was tragic. I'm
thing
like,
is
come
that
on,
it's the kind-
defend him.
Yeah, it's the kind of fear that you have, you see, because at the period of time, I mean, society in India was exactly that way. When you were talking about the brothers, they weren't really very exaggerated. They were the way the
can
families
imagine,
used to be.
yeah.
Like within the family, you would get a lot of love. But that was the whole point. They were trying to also portray the fact that sometimes too much love also can smother you to a certain extent, that you're so afraid to rock the boat in any way, because you feel you're going to let down the entire, the way they bring her in front of, the statue and saying that, you need to promise on Jesus that, I will not, cross the line. I promise on mother. I promise on this one. I promise on. That was the kind, imagine the dichotomy that there is in that family. On one hand, they are this loving family. She is the apple of their eye.
Yeah, the light of the
The
family.
whole world revolves exactly, and they keep saying that she's the princess, she's the this one. And
I
all.
felt for the
But
other
at the
kids.
same time, she can't. That kind of ties her down as well. In the same way
She's
that she
suffocated.
can't voice out her own opinions, and
Yeah.
she's suffocated by that. When it comes to her own choices in terms of a love relationship, and it's complete taboo. Never, you're talking about India, where at the point of time you are talking about arranged marriages that
Yeah.
it's not the kind of arranged marriages that you have now in India, where people actually get to meet the person and talk, and then it's kind of arranged and introduced, but it's more like a dating service where you actually get to know, and you get to say no if you don't like the
Yeah.
person.
We've seen that in
Whereas
these- in
during that
newer
period
films.
of time, it wasn't like that. Sometimes people don't even get to see the person that they are getting married to. Maybe they saw them once at
That's crazy.
the first meeting with the family, then at the engagement, and then they are married and they are sent off.
That's
So
crazy
can
to me.
you just imagine the kind of the lifestyle it was?
Yeah.
That was the lifestyle. You
Yeah.
never hear of girls going out on dates or going out to the movies. If you did that, you're automatically branded as you're a bad girl. You have loose
An
morals. You
eloper.
have this. That. So
Yeah.
exactly. So everything goes hand in hand with that. So she needs to show her family that she's this good girl, she doesn't cross the line, and we know that's good about her, because in the entire time they had that relationship, they had those boundaries and
Yeah.
barriers.
Yeah.
But the very fact that they are in a love relationship, the assumption for
Yeah, she says that.
society is that
She says that
you're
when she comes
crossing the
back.
line. You're exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're talking about this coming from a family that actually is loving.
Yeah.
In reality, people like her real brothers, there are people who, like you say, it ended up in real life
Oh
where
Christ.
people were murdered.
Decapitation.
And that used to happen. People
Yeah.
got
Oh.
cut up and burned. They,
Oh, listen,
they
I've
would
seen
burn them.
I've seen this,
They
the
would have
headlines.
to commit suicide.
Yeah.
There were many love stories that ended with the lovers in the past. When they made movies, they used to reflect life, and most of the love stories would be they'd end up committing suicide at
Yeah.
the end of it to be together. And that was hailed as a very old Romeo and Juliet kind of
Yeah,
ending,
exactly,
where
yeah.
they wouldn't
Shakespearean,
get.
yeah.
And then somebody along the line started changing that. They said, no, society needs to change and accept the fact. So then it used to be they'd fight and they'd take the girl away, and they'd be this hero and fight and save her from the rest of her family. Then the era changed to this kind of era where you need to try to get the understanding of the family a bit more. So it changed over the years.
I
in
can
the
tell you're
hope
very
that
passionate about
society
this,
will
Ruth.
move along with them.
I can tell
Yeah.
you're very passionate about this.
Because, yeah,
because I can hear you
Obviously,
got
you've
that desk.
lived and breathed it, Ruth. You've actually
Because
grown up in that
lived
sort of
in-
environment.
yeah.
So you know it
Because,
better than we
lived
do.
in that kind of an environment
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really lucky in this fact that I had parents who had a love marriage themselves.
Yeah.
But their story was exactly the
Yeah.
same. My mom had to leave, my dad had
That's
to,
crazy, man.
and go the son. And my dad was an only child, and his father was, a bit apprehensive because my mom came from a Christian background, my dad was Hindu, so it was
you've
like
got that
a
as
big
well, haven't you? The sort of
thing
religious stuff
at
as
the
well.
point of time.
Yeah.
But then later, my father, my grandfather, on my dad's side accepted it, but my mom's side, there was a lot of opposition, and it took a long time before anybody came, around to it. So it was a huge deal for them at the point of time when they got married. I mean, now many years, everybody now touts their marriage and says, "Oh, it's a fantastic choice they made,
That's the way
and
it
it
should
was
be.
very good," and all those kind of things. And my mom chose well for herself, and my dad chose well for himself. But at the time, it was very difficult. So they made it a point themselves to not raise me and my sister and my brothers and all that
In that way.
as in the
Yeah,
same way.
that's
They
it,
gave
yeah.
us choices where we maybe almost towards the other extreme. We won't find anyone for you. It's your job to go and
You
find
need to go and
whoever,
do it.
and just inform us, when you're ready to get married.
Well,
So it went to the the other extreme.
that's what I'm saying. For me, the core theme on it and the way they shine a light on that issue, it's also a pressing issue in huge parts of India, probably still to this day. The way they shine a light on it, I think that's an important thing, and we've seen it in other telepathy movies. They shine a light on political corruption. The issue, obviously, fees when you're going to get medical intervention in these places. He lighted the farmers' plight. These big agricultural sort of companies coming in, taking over the land, stealing the water, destroying villages. He always likes to shine a light on these issues. And look, I can commend that, because as a guy that's made it, he's obviously super rich. He's a superstar. He's got a huge following. He could turn his back on that and just go and make any movie he wants. It's airy, it's crap, fucking Tom Cruise-esque, flying off the side of planes and stuff like that. For him to continually go back and try and help the lesser man, help people from these situations, try and shine a light on it, the society. Well, I can respect that, and I think that for me, is in the story, that was the biggest thing. Another thing I liked about the story was the two families, the two very different families. Minnie's family,
Yeah.
obviously they're obsessive, they want to protect her. But then the other side with Jiva, his mum tried to push him to get an arranged marriage. She's trying to get him to pick a girl. His father's more laid back. How want you go and get educated? I like that sort of aspect of these two families. We looked in behind the veil of these two families. Totally different setups. They were overprotective. The father was actually trying to give him a bit of freedom. I liked that aspect of exploring that, albeit it wasn't that first hour. The first hour and a half where I thought they could have condensed some of it. That's one of my big takeaways from the story. I think the first half they could have taken maybe 15, 20, maybe even as much as 30 minutes off, condensed it. Then if it was maybe 2 hours, 15, 20 minutes, you get right into that second part of the story, the in this relationship, and then we also get into the aspect of honour. Just family splitting up, we get right into the bit I enjoyed, that's what I'm saying. But look, other people may watch this movie, they may love the first half, they may love the second half, they don't want anything cut off it. It's just my experience, and obviously all art is subjective ultimately. But I thought the story second half, the way it flowed overall, the way they developed the characters, I thought
I agree with you. You know, I did find the movie a bit too long. They could have shortened it, because it wouldn't have affected the movie a lot by shortening the movie.
Just a bit.
That was the standard, standard movie length at that point of time. Like I tried to,
we've seen
this.
But also we've watched. I mean, how many have we watched now? We've watched about, I want to say 20 plus movies from the north, and obviously predominantly south. We know for a fact it's 2.5, 3 years is the sort of standard running time. So it doesn't bother me too much. I'm used to it now watching it. Just a nitpicker. I like to nitpick. I thought the characters developed pretty well though. The mini character, she came out her shell at the end. She was speaking for herself. She was standing up to her brothers, which took a lot. And then to have that maturity to get back to your family and put your family before your own personal interests, I thought that was a very mature decision from the two of them. I thought they developed pretty well. The families didn't do much development. They were pretty much tribalistic, stuck in their own little group.
It's just, exactly. It's just more a realization.
At the end it did. Obviously the mother, she developed a bit. She's seen sense.
I had issues with Minnie's character in the fact that I just like speak up, say something, do something,
The brothers were dominating her life. They're telling her what she can and can't do. I'm like, fucking tell them to bolt. Tell them enough. I don't know if she was an adult at this point. I think she was actually probably still a youngster, because they says at one point we could get charged for kidnapping a youngster here. You sure you want to get through with this? That was also, I think, I'll go what's his name and bring his name up again. Kesefen's father, who I liked. He was a character. Getting into standout moments here. Standout moments. I've got a couple. For me, these standout moments. Well, there's two. But when also Jiva gets back to his mother and father, and he has that conversation, he basically decides, look, I have to go. I have to give his up. I'm seeking the blessing of my mother. And then I think she says, look, it was me that told your father. Ditch her and you can come back. If you don't, that's it, you're done with us. That scene, when they're having that sort of conversation, I thought that was pretty special from Telepathy. He was crying. The guy was crying. He was obviously trying to hug his mother. He was wanting to keep the family intact, but he also loved Minnie. He wanted to leave. I thought that was one of these standout scenes. And we've seen a side to Telepathy we've not seen outside of, I probably think, Master, when he cries for the young kids getting hung and he loses them, and it's his drinking that misses their call, that he could have saved their lives, and you see him getting emotional in that moment. I think aside from that, in all the movies he plays this sort of hard-nosed, confident, assured superhero sort of action star. This is the first time I've seen him actually getting emotional and breaking down in a scene. I thought that was pretty good. The other one for me, I'll let you in a minute. The other one for me is the end scene. I love the end sequence. I says that before we come on. The awkwardness. They're trying not to make eye contact. She's serving tea out. He doesn't want to take it. Then he takes it. And the mother's doesn't even. Jiva's mother doesn't even look at Minnie until she's leaving. She's like, "You're not going to speak to my daughter. Give her a blessing." And then I think she says, "What blessing can I give her? How can I give her a blessing? She's my daughter. She's my daughter-in-law. Let me have her." I think she says something along those lines. I thought that was a really cool moment. These families who were at war end up coming together, and the fact it was the necklace that get caught in Jiva's button. Yeah. And she says, "Just keep it. I'll get it after. Get it after. I'll get it off you." It was the brothers trying. She was scared the brothers would catch him and try and kick him up and down the street again. The fact that necklace brings the families together, actually brings them together, and end up getting married. I thought that was a nice bit of poetry, if you like. Stephen, if you get any standout moments, I'll go to you before I let Ruth in.
I'm trying to clear this spam in this bloody live
chat.
The
spam in the chat. I know,
ridiculous.
Japanese flags coming into the chat.
Yeah, it's I think it's adult websites or something like that, but I'm dealing with them as we talk. But listen, standout moments for me. It's a bit of a mixture, comedy and emotion.
I like the comedy in this movie.
The last scene. Yeah, you can't watch this film and say that's not a standout moment. It's probably the best moment of the film. It's where everything comes together. Everyone's acting their chops off as well.
Even the brothers.
Funnily enough, the main two aren't. They're sitting silent, and it's the rest of the cast that are really stepping up. It was a great scene, very emotional. perfect way to end a film like this, I think, in an organic way, in a very realistic way as well. Although the little freeze frame at the end of them jumping into the earth is probably a bit corny, but the comedy for me was what carried me through this film. Which it shouldn't, because
it was very good.
But I thought the comedy was really good in this film. I thought the introduction of the three brothers, how they were all introduced, the cop, that was hilarious.
They go to the
What was
hospital.
that thing he was doing with his finger in his ear?
He was just trying to show that
it was so uncomfortable.
He's disinterested.
Yeah, you can't hear him.
And I like that scene because he revealed himself. He's a talking crap. I'm her brother, by the way.
That was a great scene, by the way.
And the other one was the third brother, who was the
fiance.
doctor. Who said I'm the third brother, by the way, after slating the other two brothers. That was very, very funny.
They couldn't go anywhere.
The little guy with the gun as well, I thought was really, for comedic relief, he was great. I don't know who he was, but I don't know.
Yeah, he was comedic relief.
It was really just, I don't know if he was just brought in for comedic relief, because things were pretty tense at times in this film.
Yeah, but I mean, Stephen, he breaks up the tension.
He does.
They're nearly killing each other. He fires a gun, he nearly kills somebody.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. And when he was introduced, obviously you've got Jeevan and Minnie come out, he catches him. And he's like, no, look, we're getting married. He's like, well, that's all right then. This guy, he can be serious, but he is a bit of a joke figure at times as well. So absolutely. See what you said there, Stephen, about the ending, it being the perfect ending for this movie. I actually wrote my notes. Some movies like 96, you need that dark, poignant ending. It can't end in a happily ever after. This is the kind of movie that required that ending.
How far the movies have come. That this was the treatment that you got from a romantic movie, and then now you have things like 96 that portrays it a bit more realistically. I mean, not that this was not realistic; it was realistic for the time, because that was what society was.
So it was a possible outcome, isn't it?
And it's society that has changed in the sense that now people can actually make, but the core thing is still the same. Is because the traditions have always been there, like you say, like Western tradition. They I mean, there was the Victorian era, and there was all those situations where you really couldn't go anywhere unescorted. You need to be chaperoned. If you were ever caught somewhere,
right up to the 30s, 20s, 30s over here. You had the class system in the United Kingdom. Someone from a one class couldn't go out with another class. Forget about it.
The other standout moment for me,
Indian society is just done,
was probably the music number. The one, I think,
I tell you, that's one of my standouts.
The one with the little girl. Brilliant, absolutely.
The song and dance numbers were brilliant.
That was one of the best song and dance numbers I've seen in an Indian movie.
I
thought that little girl was fantastic. I don't know who she is, but she was amazing in that video.
The kids are brilliant. They came in and says, "Are you the uncle? You're going to be my uncle?" No. Why not? Get out. The uncle, one of the brothers says, "Get out." Ruth, what you says about the family being over lovey-dovey with her, and maybe surrounding her, wrapping her up in cotton wool, if you like, not letting her live her own life. I think you see that in the second song and dance number. You're showing the setup of this house. There's the young kids, you've got the mother, you've got the brothers, you've got her, and they're all for her, and she's singing. I thought that was a very, very good song and dance number. She admires her brothers. So I thought that was an important.
Like, she says, like, even she also tells him at one point, I'll get them to agree, because eventually, see, the thing is that the whole idea of this was that if it wasn't for some bad luck, if she had actually approached the family first before the brothers saw and got involved and all that, it could have been actually worked out. If he had gone to his parents and he had spoken to them, I've seen this girl, I really like them, the parents would have come to her house to meet the family, and even that arrangement would have worked out, which is what it could have. But just this whole series of errors that happened because the brothers unfortunately caught them in the middle, and kind of caused the ruckus.
You get off to the worst possible start. You offended one of your brothers, and also the brothers are. I think they say she says at one point. I'm sure they say she hasn't got a father. There's no father figure. The brothers are the father figures. So you get three father figures. So he's offended the father figures of the house. So they're just one blood. At times, I will admit, a con for me, it was over the top. But he's writing a love letter to her, and they're trying to kill him with bats. I'm like, come on, calm down a bit here. But as you said, Ruth, it's happened in real life. It's probably accurate. There's probably been people set about with bats in real life or doing something like that at some point.
Exactly.
But I'm like,
Yeah,
come
because
on, he's
especially
writing a love letter to her.
Oh
Kill
yeah,
him.
because sometimes it's strange when you see Westerners see a Tamil, a South Indian movie especially, and they don't quite get it, and they're like, oh, oh, this is not realistic and that kind of thing. It's not realistic for you,
Yeah.
but it's realistic for us.
You
That's
see,
what we were trying
thankfully,
to
Ruth, I
explain.
had read.
That was what society was at the time,
Thankfully,
So
I had prior information. People decapitating their daughters and taking their heads to the police station. So I knew that there was a history of this. So I come in, I'm like, slightly harsh, a little bit over the top, but it's fucking happened. So I know for a fact it's probably on the money. Another scene I liked was hello, 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 hello. They just kept saying hello, hello,
yes,
hello, hello.
Yeah,
I says it was almost.
Also that,
Jojo
yeah,
Rabbit.
for all the
It was like
the friends
it was
had,
like
right?
Jojo Rabbit,
Very awkward
Stephen
as well.
Merchant. I don't know if you've seen Jojo Rabbit, Ruth, the Taika Waititi movie, but Steve Merchant plays an SS officer. He goes into this house and they just kept saying "Hi Hitler, hi Hitler, hi Hitler." They say it about 15 times. He was going for a record. I think they were doing that with hello in this. It was like 50 hellos.
It's so funny, yeah, and
didn't
especially
talk.
when every time they tried to say hello after that, and then the police officer is like saying, "Don't trust these guys,"
Yeah.
especially the shirt with the checkers.
Yeah.
And, the guys,
He's laughing.
It's so funny, the son. But you see, that was also a depiction of how innocent the youngsters used to be at the time. Yeah, the boys talk a lot about, oh, go and grab her, go and this one and all. But it's all those bravado moments when they actually faced with these two girls just sitting there.
Yeah.
They are awkward as well because they've got not a lot of exposure with females as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they go to a college where it's all guys studying some business
Steve would say a
courses.
sausage
They
party.
probably barely have any interaction with any girl, so it's awkward for the guys as well.
Yeah.
And that was what it was, because that I mean, if the families are not behind you talking alone to a girl or whatever, where is the practice that you get in talking to a girl? So that's the kind of awkwardness that's depicted.
And Shiva just didn't speak. He just looked to the left. He's like, nope, they're not there. I'll just look out. Oh, look at that lovely bird flying over there. He didn't open his mouth at any point. In fact, I don't think he starts speaking to her until he's apprehended with the brother. And he says, she's my fiancée. That's the first time he opens his mouth to her. And we're about 35 minutes into the movie at that point. And he admits himself, we must have looked at each other. We must have had 1,000 glances by this point. I'm sorry, all we've ever did is really bump into each other and look at each other. I'm sorry, all we've stepped to mark. We must have had 1,000. He didn't open his mouth for about 30 minutes, so yeah. But again, that's probably an accurate depiction, to be fair. I says our brothers were a bunch of DICKs. I'm not going to say that word because obviously they were. But for me, they redeemed themselves at the end in that end scene. Because you could see they just wanted the best for their daughter, their sister. I'm saying daughter because they're like a father figure. So it's understandable. Because look, I've not got any daughters, obviously. I've got a sister, but she doesn't need me to protect her. She could probably batter people better than I could. But as having nieces, if anyone went near a niece, I'd fucking kill them. So I can understand it. I can't. If anybody even batted an eyelid or said the wrong thing, they'd be wearing a fist. So I can understand it. I can get my head around it. So even though they were a bunch of dicks, I've just said it. It's absolutely fine. They also redeemed themselves at the end. The music, I did like the song and dance numbers. There was a couple very 90s drum stuff going on. And as a guy who grew up in the 90s,
the first song,
I can appreciate it. He did, yeah.
He sang the old baby song.
Yeah, I noticed that. I says he's singing. And I like it when VJ sings. This guy doesn't need to have anybody dubbing his voice. He can sing. We've seen that in Cutie Story and Master, which I still love. He can sing. That's another thing, by the way, I'm going to get into. And I know it's something that happens a lot in Indian cinema. I know they like to overdub. They go back and they'll maybe dub it. And sometimes, in the case of, what was that one we watched? Oh, Christ, I'm blanking on the name. Tumbad.
Yeah.
The leading actor actually overdubbed these lines about 5 times until he could actually perfect this dialect. I know they like to do it. But at one point, the dubbing was that abrasive, I'm going to say to me. I'm like, is that even telepathy speaking? If they dubbed his voice, I actually thought I had a different audio. I'm like, that isn't telepathy. But then as it went on, it get better.
Movies, that's what they do.
It get better as it went on.
Indian movies, they tend to do that because sometimes the spoken Tamil is a bit different from
the general.
like if you want to hear like the proper Tamil speaking, so
that's
sometimes So what I think most Indian movies they do, I don't quite understand the process, but I think what they do is that they will shoot the movie, they will be talking in the scenes and all that, and then the same actors will come back to the studio to dub their voice.
Mhm.
It's like they're dubbing over their own voice in
Well,
order for it to have that kind of level of clarity.
yeah, I mean, I grew up watching Bruce Lee
Yes.
movies, so it's no too bad to me. I'm used to it.
So
It's absolutely fine.
yeah, so sometimes the old movies sometimes goes a bit out of sync if it's an old
I'm,
old
at one point, is that telepathy?
Yeah.
Is that? If, am I watching the wrong movie? That doesn't sound like telepathy to me. But then it get better. I'm like, that is telepathy. It's absolutely fine. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just another little observation of mine.
Mhm.
Getting into technical stuff here before we get to performances. I have to say
Yeah.
the score was brilliant. It's in my pros. I think it's I can't say his name. Ilya Raja.
Ilayaraja, yeah.
Ilya Raja.
He's the man that he's like huge legend.
Yeah, I heard, yeah,
they
yeah.
refer to him as Maestro,
Did he?
and
Was it?
he
Did
is
he?
actually
He
the,
worked.
the song in Talabadi, the music in Talabadi that you saw.
Oh yeah, he did that. That's right. He did. I thought it was
He did the
Prabhudeva.
music for that.
I thought he worked in Mukabala, but he didn't. It was telepathy.
He did the music for that as well, for that movie as well.
I thought the score was brilliant. Some of the sort of more emotive moments were really enhanced with the score, and it did some. For me, there was some choppy moments. Don't get me wrong. In the first bit
Mhm.
of the movie,
Yeah.
it was choppy, but it get better and better and better as it went on. And look, that's actually something. That was a similar experience I had with telepathy, because I thought these are a little bit too short. These moments, these scores, these little. I don't know if you'd
Yeah.
call it movements. They're ending a bit abrupt, but then by the
Yeah,
end, he
the
builds it
dancing
all
wasn't
together.
that great at that point of time because there was not a lot of
No, but I think that's
actors
his
who know the
style.
dance.
I actually think that's
There
his
was not
style. I think he introduces little bits here and then he
Little
builds
bits.
it and it brings it all together at the end. So I actually think it's a style, so it's fine. That's the way he does it. And I thought the
It
score was
was
absolutely
only
brilliant.
during Vijay's era that the actors started to know how to dance and that kind of thing. So prior to that, they did some dance, but there wasn't like really like outstanding dance movements sometimes in movies, and that kind of changed when Vijay came on the scene as well because
Yeah.
he was a good dancer.
Certainly
But
is.
in his earlier movies,
And we
there's
see that in
not a
this.
lot of it. It's more, yeah.
That's another
Because
standout.
it
He's dancing.
goes hand in hand with how much say you get. When he was a younger actor, I think he had less input
Mhm.
in a
Yeah.
movie. It was more what the directors would give them,
And
and
that's why
but then
Leonardo,
as he became more popular, he has
his
this
own
greater
production company.
input. Then it just changes over time. What he wants to do and
Yeah.
how he wants to portray himself. Yeah,
I think that's. Look, see, if you're a superstar actor, if you've got to a certain stage, you've got respect in the industry. I think almost all of these actors will inevitably get their own production company at some point. Leonardo DiCaprio's done it over here. Michael B. Jordan's done it. Margot Robbie.
yeah.
I don't know if it's the case. I know for a fact. Who was it? Oh, there was somebody we were watching. They actually had their own production company. Was it Surya?
Surya,
I think he's got his own production company. At some point, you just
the latest movie Jai Bhim also is his production.
yeah. At some point, you just decide, look, I'm taking control of my career. I'm taking control of the movies. Then I've got the ultimate say on what happens. And if it flops, it's on you. If it's
Do
a
you know that,
success, it's on you.
Do you know the
Yeah,
guy
it
that plays
matters a
Jiva's
lot
father
who's
is
the
actually
producer.
Surya's dad in real life?
Was that?
Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And Kathy, I don't know who Kathy is.
the one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one that played
um,
Jiva's dad is Surya's real dad in real
Played
life.
Yeah.
Jeeves, alright.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was
yeah,
cool, by the way.
yeah.
I like that guy. He put me in mind
Yeah.
of somebody, and I can't put my
He's
finger on
a
who it is.
very long-term actor.
Yeah.
He has been acting since black and white films till now. So yeah, he's.
I liked his relationship with Jiva. I did.
Yeah.
It was carefree. That's like my relationship with my parents. But he says that at one point, like I brought him up like a best friend, and this is what he does to me. So there was some great moments between those two. Cinematography, look, I will admit when I was watching it, and this isn't a slant on the movie, and I've made this point. It's not a slant on the cinematography. I loved the cinematography in this movie. I thought it captured close-ups, the emotion, some nice wide shots, captured the action pretty well. But the copy I was watching on 9000, I'm going to admit it was on 9000. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah,
Quite grainy,
Yeah.
quite distorted.
yeah.
That's on the people.
It's very difficult to get South Indian
Yeah.
films that are clear.
It's on the people who are
like
restoring it.
that.
They've just been lazy. They've not restored it properly. That ain't a slant on the cinematographer because he's created it back in the day, crystal clear. The people who are restoring
Yeah.
it need to get their fucking shit together and get it restored properly because it's like grain.
Yeah.
But the cinematography, I thought it pretty damn decent. And there was some quick paced action in this. There was the brothers beating the shit out of Jiva. Jiva was holding his own at one point. By the way, man, Tara Paffy, man, we have to speak about Tara Paffy's physique. As somebody who does weight training, it's kind of like an overactive thyroid, trying to keep the muscle on his body.
And
Not
he
even try
hasn't
to gain.
aged a lot, right?
His fucking physique is unreal, by the way. See when he came out the pool,
But-
I'm like, look at this guy's traps, man. He's a joke, his chest is chiseled, he's in some shape, man, back then.
Yeah.
And we've seen it in Master just last year. He's the same.
Yeah.
The guy's in his late 40s, he's got the same physique. So I respect the guy. And he hasn't aged a lot.
And he also looks about the same. I mean, he
It's a
hasn't
joke.
aged like a lot.
Look.
It's just that he had more of a baby face when he was younger.
Ruth, I've searched
But, you
this
know-
up, man. I've asked the question, why is it that Indian, Asian, and black people don't age as badly as us? Pale white Casper
I think it's the
bitches.
weather.
And it's the weather, and I think
think
it's
the
something to do with melanin. You don't get sun damaged as bad as
Yeah.
us. Because I've got lines under my
Yeah,
eyes
when
I'm
your
trying
doctor
desperately to get
skin
rid of, and
dry.
I'm looking at Tara Paffy. I'm like, this guy's nearly 50, he looks fucking better than me. I'm like, how are they doing it? But I've looked into it, apparently it's just genetics, that where you are, melanin and stuff like that. But he does, he looks brilliant.
Yeah.
He still looks pretty damn young. He looks in his mid-30s right now. Mid-30s. See if he didn't have the grey in the beard, if he dyed that, he'd look fine. But if you've got anything to say about technical, editing, I'll let Stephen. I think Stephen will share my same views on editing.
I've already
Yeah.
covered it, so
Editing.
yeah.
Some of the editing is quite abrupt at
Yeah,
times. It
choppy,
cuts too
yeah.
soon for me. There'll be a moment in
Yeah.
a scene where it'll cut, and I'm like, that could have had a second or two more. It's quite abrupt. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's maybe.
I wonder whether I think the cuts are a bit like that. It's very
Very
kind
abrupt.
of a choppy cut. Yeah, very abrupt. And I'm not sure. Maybe it could also be the film itself, because, like you say, right, it's not really restored well or kept well. So so maybe they have lost something in between.
I think so. Because
Things that also,
I
the
can't-
deterioration.
I can't imagine the editors deliberately cutting it like that, because some of them are
Yeah.
quite. You're like, that cut there, I'm like, there should be a second, maybe two, maybe three more seconds of footage here, but it cut quite quickly. Maybe it is, maybe it's down to the actual restoration in the version we've got.
I'm
Performances,
not really sure.
performances, Stephen, I'll let you go.
Telepathy VJ for me.
Telepathy VJ,
Of
absolutely.
course, yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, me
you know,
too.
I know you're talking about character development. I didn't really see a lot of that in this film, to be honest with you. I
Yeah,
thought they were
there
very
is a-
samey from
They
start
were
to
all
finish.
pretty much the same, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were. I think because of the way the characters were written to be very stern and stubborn and
Yeah.
sticking to their guns. It kind of restricted their development, which is a deliberate thing. It's not
Yeah.
like it was a bad decision by the writers or the director. That's the way they were meant to be. For me,
There
Telepathy
wasn't
VJ.
meant to be.
Yeah, Telepathy VJ for me, as I said earlier, this was a film that I've seen him act the most in. It's crazy when you think about it, but I think it is, because I think sometimes when you do see action films, you're not seeing the true actor in any action film, whoever it may be, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah, I mean, they have
Sylvester
to, they have
Stallone.
to sort
You're
of do
not
a certain
really
thing,
seeing
don't they?
those scenes, and sometimes those films, it's the quieter moments that I appreciate. Rocky Balboa, when he's having that heart to heart with his son,
Yeah.
it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. Things like that stick in my mind because it's good acting, and it's the same in this film for Telepathy VJ. I think there's so many key moments in this film, in terms of his emotions, hiding his emotions at times as well, which is kind of underacting in a way, which is sometimes a tougher thing to do. And I just think he carried this film from start to finish, and that's not doing a disservice to the
No.
actors in any way or anything
Other
like that.
people,
It's just
but
that
yeah.
the focus was him and obviously
Shalini.
Shalini, yeah. That was the focus for me anyway in this film.
For me, it's telepathy. 100% it's telepathy. He's outstanding. Knowing what I know now about Shalini, though, what you've said about I've grown up as a child actor and changing the way she's actually coming across in cinema, I give a little bit more respect for what she's done there. I liked the two. I liked Charlie and Dami. I thought the two friends were hilarious at moments. The father, Keshavan's father, Manny Vannon, I thought he had a good little cameo. I didn't even know Radha Ravi was
He's
in here,
also a
incidentally. I've seen his
director
face before.
himself, yeah.
Who was Radha
Yeah.
Ravi? Who's that again? Radha Ravi?
Sorry,
Radha Ravi?
the
Because I've
Radha
recognised
Ravi
his face.
is the eldest. He's the eldest brother.
Brother? Oh, right, yeah. I've seen him before. We've seen him in
the,
movies.
The older one, the
Veda
one's
Chennai.
the doctor. Yeah, he
Yeah.
He
Yep.
also, I think, acted in
Siva Kumar as well.
what was that movie? Sarka.
Sarkar.
I think he's one of he acted as
The politicians.
He acted in the movie as
Yeah.
the politician. Yeah.
I recognised him when
Yeah.
I seen his photo there. I'm like,
Quite a
oh, that
distinct
guy.
look, yeah.
Siva Kumar, the father of Jiva, I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then obviously I can't even say her name, Shrividya at the end, for the end scene.
Srividya.
Shrividya at the end for that end scene.
Yeah.
Just the
Exactly.
acting, she's mad. She's not a please can we have her. Just that scene, I thought for that alone, that was a sort of standout. But it's telepathy, 100% for me. Ruth.
Yeah. Telepathy. Yeah, for me, Vijay, yeah, definitely. He carried the. But
Incidentally,
he tends to do that. Yeah, I mean, although yes, in the older movies, there's a lot more contribution by the other actors. So it's not like the latest movies where pretty much he's the whole star of the movie and that kind of thing. But even then, he has a screen presence that is just it was there from the start. You can see the glimpses of what big a star he, like the beginnings of what he is now. You can still see it there because he pretty much carries the film a lot. And I mean, let's face it, you're watching the movie mainly because of him. He's bringing the interest to the story itself. And so for me, stand-up performance, definitely him.
I says that, Ruth. I says, see if you take telepathy out and recast the Jiva character with an inferior actor, I think the whole story falls apart. The whole movie falls apart. You need him in this movie.
Yeah.
It's not doing a disservice to Shalini and all of the other actors in there. He's the sort of leading man in this movie. You take him out, you'd place him with an inferior actor. It's not the same movie for me, so that's the importance of his acting.
The subsequent movies after this, Shalini, she had already established herself as different from her child self in this. And then after that, whatever movies that came later, she did become a bit more
Talkative.
open and a little bit more bouncy and all that. So because there is a movie that you need to see. Remember you were saying that you wanted to watch some of the earlier stuff that Madhavan did?
Yeah. Yeah, Madhavan,
when he had like a romantic
totally
movie
different.
and stuff. So yeah, he and Shalini has acted in a very popular movie. That's one of the romantic movies that's really worth watching.
Yeah.
It's also like a great director for the movie as well. So that's a movie that maybe down the line you can
Madhavan,
just
I mean,
have a look at. But
Madhavan's physical transformation to the current day is ridiculous.
Yes,
It doesn't look like the same human being. Even going back to Three Idiots, it's not the same guy. And I'll fight anybody to tell me that ain't the same guy. I can go back 12 years and look at myself when I was 20 and I'm like, right, that's me. Looks like me. Doesn't fucking look like it. Doesn't look like he's a different guy. But what are we going to do next? I think that's it. Final thoughts. We've went through all of the little bullet points. Final thoughts, overall rating. Who wants to go first? Stephen? Would you like to go first or will I go to Ruth?
I think you should, because I'm trying to clear this chat again.
Stephen's trying to clear the chat out. So Ruth, I'll go to you, man. What was your thoughts? I'll put you on the spotlight. On you go. It's on you.
Yeah, my final thoughts of the movie is that I mean, overall, I liked the movie. It was entertaining. It was really nice. I liked all the messages that were in it. I liked bits of the comedy. It was really funny and all that. Yeah, my issues with the movie is that it could have been shorter. The edits were a bit choppy, and and maybe some parts perhaps a little bit more melodramatic, but forgivable because of the time it was made, and considering that was the kind of storylines that you got out of India at the time. But I thought overall it was an enjoyable movie. It's one of those movies that you wouldn't mind watching again, and it's Telepathy Vijay movie. I mean, in general, with like I told you, with the certain exceptions, his movies usually tend to be entertaining and it's fun to watch and all of those
That's
things.
always
So
something,
it was
always
kind
something.
of a feel-good, happy ending kind of movie, a very light-hearted, no real like overwhelmingly strong message or whatever it is, but nonetheless it had little messages in it as well. So yeah, it was quite entertaining for me to watch. And I mean, are we giving the rating now? But
yeah, if you want to give a rating, you can give it. I've not actually get them up. 2 seconds, I'll count down. On you go if you want to give it.
Yeah, for me, I had some issues with the movie, but in general, I think I would still give it an enjoyable, like maybe a C minus,
C minus.
because
That's
I
surprising me,
still
Ruth.
thought that it was still better than the average. Yeah.
That surprises me quite a bit that you've gave it a C minus. I think you've actually rated it lower than I'm going to rate it. Maybe higher than Stephen, though, I think. Shall I go next? Or do you want to go next, Stephen?
Yeah, I'll go if you want. Yeah.
On you go, man. On you go.
Unlike
I'll go
Ruth,
to you.
I don't think I'll be getting back to watch this film anytime soon. I got what I did get out of it. You know, I thought the message was very clear in terms of society in that part of the world, and you've got to respect that. You know, in terms of storyline, I felt it was a bit disjointed at times. I thought it was a bit start and stop. Generally, in the first half of the movie, you know, I thought it was a hard watch at times because it did drag on a bit. But saying that, I liked Jiva character. I did like him very much. I liked his friends. I liked most of the characters in this film. The mini character grew on me. It took a while to get there, but eventually she did get there. But it's because of the execution of the way the story was told. You're not introduced to the three brothers right away. Yeah. Once you get to know them, you understand why the way she is, and then when you get to meet the mother, you understand even more the way she is. You know, and
absolutely.
But you know, I think this film really needed that comic relief as well in there. I think at times that it was very dead on serious, and rightly so. You know, you're touching on sensitive issues, traditions, and respect. You can't do that. You know, and have the audience engrossed for that length of time just doing that sort of tone. You do need that sort of relief. I didn't think the comedy was that jarring in this film, to be fair. Some of it was a bit silly, Charlie Chaplin-esque, but I love that. I love Laurel and Hardy.
Absolutely.
So you know, and I think that was great. The ending scene I thought was well executed. We were talking about 96, how that was a more realistic. Maybe we've all became a bit more cynical in our old age, you know, and the 96 ending is more of a realistic sort of you know, payoff for a film in today's society. You know, in 1997, you know, it was probably different, but I felt that they handled it very well, you know, wrapping up this film in a realistic way. They really did. You know, my issues with the film are obviously more of a technical, not in technical in terms of production wise. I think we're past the whole, you know, period of time in South Indian cinema where the investment wasn't there. So I can't judge a film on that. That's not very fair to do that. It's more on skill. Production skill, editing really did bug me at times. I felt some scenes lingered on, some scenes were cut abruptly, and I just felt there wasn't that great balance, so it was a little bit jarring at times. For me, you know, it's one of those films. I'm not the biggest romantic film fan out there, because the format is generally the same. It's generally you get two sort of shy, naive and awkward people
Stephen
coming together.
You,
it takes a long time for them to get together. They get together, they have a sort of moment, then something drifts them apart, and then they come back together again at the very end. That's nothing wrong with that. Horror films are very much the same. They use that same template. But for me, I'll go to my rating if you want, because I'm
you go. I'm just trying to count down the ratings here, because I've got a idea where you're going.
Yeah, it's D.
Steve's giving it a D. I fucked that hard. Sorry, 2 seconds. Bring it over. I don't know what's going on with your ratings here. The graphics are an abomination, to be quite frank. Steve's gave it a D. Ruth gave it a C minus. What am I going to give it? We'll get to me in a moment as I count down what I'm going to give it. This is how shambolic our show is here. I am going to give it this, so we'll leave it on that. My thoughts on this movie will go to me. I like to leave myself to last, clearly. I like to sound in my own voice too much. I like the message we're portraying in this movie. I know for a fact the whole honour thing, there's honour killings and stuff like that, even going on to this day. Big fan of Harry Potter. I think it was Afan Ashwood, I think that's her name. She was at the centre of a whole honour killing thing that happened. Not honour killing, she didn't get killed, she's still alive, but they tried to kill her brother and father. So I was acutely aware of this, that there's this concept of honour in Indian and in general in that region perhaps. Families that they don't quite like eloping, if you like. They would say it's eloping, perhaps the kids who are getting involved would say they're just being themselves. I knew that was an issue, and I think once again to explore that, Tarapathi, he doesn't shy away from these issues. We've seen it in Master. He released a deleted scene. The studio shot out of it, if you'd like, didn't want to put it in the movie. He put it out. The whole thing about abusing young girls and taking advantage of them. He wanted that message to go out, so he got it out on YouTube. So I respect this guy. No end for his continual sort of activism, political corruption, issues with the health system, issues with agriculture, the villages being abused with these big companies. And then in this movie, 24 years ago, he's doing it 24 years ago when he was in his mid-20s. Him and Facile, I think it was, wasn't it, the director? Highlighting the societal will, this whole honour sort of situation, the families falling apart, disowning their own kids because they've chosen a different path to what they want. I liked that concept in the story. I thought the story, in the second half, probably more than the first, grew into itself, if you'd like. That's the best sort of saying I can give when I've been drinking Indian Pale Ale. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the ending of the movie tremendously. I liked the last scene. I was actually getting goosebumps watching it because these two kids deserve to be together. And I'm calling them kids because she was 18, he was 25. They're kids at that point. They deserve to be together. And much like 96, I thought that was a perfect ending with also Trish and Vijay Sethupathi characters going their separate ways. It couldn't happen any other way. For me in this movie, it needed the Hollywood ending. It needed the happy ever after ending. And we got it. And I had that in mind to sort of take that 1990s freeze jump kick. I didn't mind that too much. In the main, I thought the characters, I thought the two, the Jeeva and Minnie character developed a bit. I actually did think, and then also the parents at the end, they came to their sense and showed a sign of development by giving the kids what they wanted, letting them get together instead of just pursuing their own. I don't even know what you'd even call it, their own. I don't know. Their own thing. So I thought there was slight development. The technical stuff, I liked the score. I thought the score was pretty good. And I thought telepathy was telepathy. He is what he is. He's a big personality. He's a big presence. And his presence in any movie is always going to elevate it for me. So I'm going to count down again because I've lost my bearings here. And we're going to go to this. I'm going to give this movie, wait for it, higher than the two of yous. I'm giving it a C. A C, just because it's telepathy. And I did like the second half of the movie. The first half disappointed me. I was getting concerned. An hour and a bit into this movie, Stephen will tell you, actually walked away and played some Dead by Daylight. I had to take a break. I was like, I'm worried about this movie. Thankfully, as we went into the second half, it get better and better and better for me, so that's why it's ultimately get a C. That and just the technical stuff. I like to jump it all in together. So for me, that's what I gave it. I gave it a C. I've gave it a C. Ruth gave it a C minus. Stephen has gave it a D. That's how we're rating this movie. And you know what? We're all right, because it's all subjective. So Stephen's right, I'm right, and Ruth's right. There's no wrong rating when you're reviewing movies and watching movies. I could think it's the greatest fucking movie ever. Somebody else could think it's absolute trash. It's all subjective. So that's going to round it up on that note, man. That's our ending to the movie. What's the name of this movie? I'm going to bring it up because I'm terrified to try and pronounce this. That's the ending of our Kadhalukku Mariyadhai review. Ruth, can you say that? Kadhalukku Mariyadhai. I was close. That's your review of Kadhalukku Mariyadhai. Finished. What was your thoughts on Kadhalukku Mariyadhai? I'm just going to keep saying it now to just prove I can say it. Did you like Kadhalukku Mariyadhai? What was your thoughts on telepathy? What was your thoughts on Shalini? What was your thoughts on the cast, the story? This message being portrayed about honour and these families' honour in the form of beating guys up against trees and kicking shit over them, hitting them with bats and disowning them. What was your experience? Is that something that resonates with you? You can comment below if you've got anything to share at all about our review about the movie in the comment section. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it. And you can subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notifications straight to your eyeballs for more reviews like this in the future. We do a whole array of content on here, man. Watch along reactions, reviews. We used to do movie news, but stopped doing that just now. But if you want to see it, you can stick around for that if you don't. That's absolutely fine. Regardless though, thank you very much for watching. We're all done here. Bye bye.